Hello and welcome to the Online Trainers Podcast, where we go behind the scenes to uncover the latest tactics and strategies top trainers around the world are using to get more clients, dominate their marketplace, and get their clients amazing results. There is absolutely no fluff here. I'm your host, Lynn Trin. Hello and welcome to episode 218 on the Online Trainers Podcast. Today's topic is fear of judgment. So I've got a funny story to share with you because I don't know if this may seem seemingly true to you right now, if for a lot of you guys that know me, especially that follow me on social media, I'm very outspoken and I definitely do have an opinion. But back when I first started online, I was really scared of putting myself out there. I was really scared of what people would say. And I really do believe that every single person goes through this. When I talk to a person who is having a lot of success online, generally the question comes up, when did you make that breakthrough? And the number one answer that I've gotten over time was, not caring. When I stopped caring about what everyone else thought and I started doing my own thing. And that is so true for me because, when I first started out online, I was so afraid to put my face on social media. I was advertising from my PB City page. I would use different image templates and ad templates, and I'd never put my face on there. And I think I did that for a good 3-4 months before I started to realize, hold on, this isn't working. Hold on, there is something a little bit more to this than just simply putting out ads. You actually have to communicate to prospects. You actually have to be a brand. People need to know, love, and trust you. And for a long time, if we look at the differences between where the business was, being a kind of generic template kind of dude versus putting out a personality and a brand to it, which is myself, my own opinions, my methodologies, the difference is night and day. And I can tell you this right now, that the number one fear I had was, people judging me, people going, well, who's he? Who's that short 5'6" Asian dude? Who is he to teach? That was kind of the internal fear, that who was I? But obviously, of course, most of the, comments or crap that came up had nothing to do with that anyway. It was just the own internal fear. And they and I got used to the fact that, they would say, who's this guy? He doesn't know anything about getting into shape. He's not even in shape, X, Y, and Z, and all of this stuff, right? So I was cool with that. And the fear was, it was completely irrelevant because as soon as it was done, this is what I learned. As soon as it was done, you got used to it. And when you got used to it, you were almost liberated by that fear. It was quite astounding. Like I've gone through such a massive internal transformation that, when you get liberated from a fear, it almost is like a sigh of relief. It's like a weight off your shoulder that now you can move. And I truly believe that right now we're leaders, such as you and I, we're finding it difficult, and we're finding a lot of these internal struggles along the way because we were never supposed to be conditioned to be brought up in such a social media environment. It just wasn't, where one scathing attack can really hurt. So if I've got a piece of advice for you right now, is that whatever fear that you've got, really get to know them, really get to know the fear of judgment, really get to understand yourself a little bit more. Like a lot of the times, you might be putting out content, but there's this hesitancy. And inside of that hesitancy, don't just palm it off. Just be able to reflect on it and go, okay, why might I be feeling this? And it's just a simple reflection. It's not trying to get you to do the content, but it's actually understanding what is that feeling that comes up. Because you and I both know, especially if you've been following this podcast since the very beginning, I said this at the start, if you jump on video, you've got a massive advantage over all the other trainers around. The thing that we only see, and I'm going to reiterate this, is you only see the race that people are running. You don't get to see the people that stopped at the first hurdle because they stopped. And the people that you see online right now are the people that are still going. But you don't get to see the amount of people that started and then stopped. So it's in retrospect, if only you knew, that would give you motivation and inspiration to keep going. Now, a really good exercise for me that I've been doing lately is really trying to get into the habit of consistency. Being consistent with my morning routine, being consistent with my content, being consistent with my marketing, being consistent with my innovation and my coaching. And one of the things that I learned along the way is there are times where I might not feel like doing something, and I really want to assess why. At times when you put out campaigns or when you put out advertising and you should be setting up ads or retargeting or popping out a webinar, but you don't do it, the feeling comes up and there's resistance, and it's just being able to understand that resistance at kind of like a third person point of view. You're not really looking at it head on. You're not trying to overcome the resistance. You're just simply figuring out why. Because when you study yourself and you begin to study your emotions and your triggers and your feelings, and only then will you really start to understand yourself. I think this game of understanding why you do what it is that you do is absolutely incredible, and why you don't do things is absolutely incredible. And it's just having that sense of awareness. And lately I've become so much more in tune to that I think it's an important aspect of growth, especially if you're committed to growth, if you're committed to, and obsessed to becoming the best. These are the kind of intentional details that you're going to have to pay attention to get the edge. I think society as a whole, we tend to live in kind of a blinded state where we don't really assess things, we don't question things, we don't see the truth. And right now more than ever, running a company, it's shown me that the truth will set you free. Because if you don't know the truth, you can't fix it. If you're blinded by the truth, you're disillusioned. And so a lot of the times, I was blinded by my truth because I didn't get down to why I wasn't doing the thing, and therefore I could never fix it. If I knew right now that I had a fear of judgment, well, I'd simply need to assess that, write that down, and then I need to go, right, if I don't do this, what happens? If I do this, guess what happens? I get better at it, and then that fear becomes eradicated. So I think a really, really good thing, especially if you're a leader and you're looking to grow and you need the edge. It's not even about social. It's not even about staying relevant. It's about being able to tackle the fears and becoming a person that you need to become along the way in order to have the things that you want. So I say this, people want a lot of things, but they're not willing to change themselves. You get a lot of things by changing yourself. You get a lot of things by becoming a more valuable person. If you become a more valuable person, guess what? Chances are you're going to put out more valuable content. And then as a result of that, you're going to get more valuable things. Now, valuable things is not an objective term in this sense. It's not about objects, it's not about physical objects. It's about valuable relationships, valuable insights, valuable growth. Okay, and then of course, there is going to be the physical objects that come with that. So kind of my reflection for today, and I wanted to give you a reflective kind of podcast today, because I am in that reflective mode. But something to think about is, if you're struggling, it's completely okay, but it's not okay to hide. It's not okay to kind of sweep that fear under the carpet. That's kind of what an amateur does. And if you know that if you want to be a pro, then you got to start vetting out every single area of your life, because then and only then will you be able to overcome that. And that's when you really start to improve. That's when you really start to, become a master. That's when you can only fix things, when you know the truth. And so for me, that was something that held me back for a long time. I think it holds a lot of people back, especially leaders, especially coaches who have an opinion. It definitely doesn't hold some people back inside of the fitness industry. But, how indestructible are you? There are people inside of the fitness industry that you see that can write really, really well. There are other people on YouTube that can write a vlog and slander people really, really well, but they can't write. So how indestructible are you? And so I want you to think about, potentially writing down a list of all your fears and saying, well, if I don't overcome this fear, I know it's very fearful, but if I don't overcome this, what is the consequence of the result of not overcoming this fear? And almost you gotta make it black and white. It literally becomes, well, if I overcome this, well, X, Y, and Z is gonna happen. If I don't, then I'm not gonna get X, Y, and Z, and I'm just gonna play small. And generally, what you're gonna notice is that you're not the only one. And I love to think of life as a game, and we're competing against everyone else in business, right? So I'm very competitive, and if you are as well, you're going to love this exercise. If you're not as competitive, then just sit down and just reassess your fears and just simply go, okay, understand your strengths and then begin to double down on your strengths. So I hope that helps. But more importantly, I hope it allows you to take action. It allows you to continue to grow, because inside of your growth, you're going to enable people to grow. Your growth as well liberates other people. You'll begin to shine so bright that other people will say, hey, what are you doing? And you'll be able to help them on this kind of developmental journey on freeing themselves and freeing them from the shackles of society, the normality of what people say is normal based on their fears. So that's all from me today. Hope you enjoyed this one. If you did, please leave us a review or let me know by hitting me up on Facebook, and I'll talk to you on the next podcast episode.
Alright, if you enjoyed this podcast, please leave me a 5-star review on iTunes, and feel free to leave a review, and that way I can respond and I can take that on board in developing content to serve you. Now, if you're not a part of the Online Trainers Club on Facebook, please do yourself a favor and be a part of the conversation. That's where I add daily tips, tricks, and strategies on how you can build out funnels, how you can get more clients, and ultimately become a better online coach. Thank you for listening.